Thank you so much for joining us today, Bobbi. It is fabulous to have you here. Can you start by giving us a little 101 on Bobbi Mahlab?
Yes, I am a serial founder of businesses and started my life as a journalist. The main businesses I'm involved in right now are Mahlab, which is a marketing and communications agency that operates throughout Asia Pacific. And I'm also very proudly the co-founder of Mentor Walks, which is a program that's making mentoring accessible to women everywhere. And I also sit on a number of boards, including the Council for Women's Economic Opportunity in New South Wales, which is a government board, which, Jo, is how I know you.
Yes, so full disclosure, Bobbi and I actually already know each other. We sit on as Bobbi mentioned, a government board in New South Wales in Australia. And we are really focusing in on your experience, understanding, knowledge, guru-ness of mentoring and how that sort of culminated into the development and rollout of Mentor Walks, which you'll find the links to with this recording, which is now operating as of 2023 in 4 countries. So congratulations. I'm also a participant of Mentor Walks in Singapore, and it is just the most amazing organization and concept. So we'll talk more about Mentor Walks as we're going along. But what we're really wanting to talk around today is how mentoring actually comes into play for trailing spouses, because I think a lot of people can often find that mentoring is only for certain stages of life or stages of career. And I've got lots and lots of questions that I'd really like to ask you around sort of that concept, but also some myth busting that goes with that as well. So I just wanted to go back to basics, but most people sort of get the idea of what mentoring is, but how do you define it, and how is in your mind and how you do things, how's it different to coaching?
So mentoring is about someone who is sharing their own experience and wisdom with you to help you succeed. And coaching is much more where someone is working with you to achieve specific goals. So I see coaching as being much more micro and hands-on than mentoring. So mentoring is really about, look, this has been my experience and you might want to think about this, and here's some questions to consider. Coaching is, I think, much more intense, and this is where you want to get to. We're going to help you get there, and these are the kinds of things we're going to work on together to do that. So there is a lot of crossover. But I think if you think about a golf or tennis coach, they're there to show you actually how to hit. Whereas what a mentor might say is, who have you watched play? Right? So that would be the difference.
Yeah, no, I like that. Good analogy. I like a good tennis analogy. So I think a lot of people can really find when they either start a trailing spouse journey or can be months, years into one, is that that concept of getting a mentor might sound a bit or feel a bit obscure, because you sort of think, oh no, you get a mentor when you're in high school, or you have a mentor when you're looking to sort of make some major life or career changes. I guess, what sort of value can you see in mentoring for someone, well, in say early on in a trailing spouse sort of situation? They've left a job, they've left their country, or they've left their city and they've moved to a different area or different physical location in the world. What sort of role do you think that mentoring can play in that sort of stage of life?
Look, I think what a mentor can do is help you understand the local landscape. They can help you introduce you to people that will help you form your community in that place. I think that particularly for travelling spouse, if they've left a job or whatever to follow their spouse, sometimes I imagine, and this is only from people I've talked to, not my own experience, but you really are reassessing where you fit in the world. So you need to find compatriots who will, help you navigate the space. So in that sort of circumstance, a mentor is someone with experience who's a wise head that can perhaps, teach you some ropes about the place, introduce you to people. I mean, even to, a mentor is probably a very loose use of this word, but even where a good dentist is or a good doctor, it's like someone who can give you those local networks that will help you settle well, and perhaps your mentor might be another trailing spouse who has actually been in a destination and knows how things work, know how you feel, and they can, help shape that experience for you.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like finding a mentor that sort of suits you is almost like finding a GP or finding a psychologist or finding someone that you gel with. So as far as when you're sort of seeking out mentors, I've got a couple of questions around this. One, it can feel a bit weird, will you mentor me? Is this something that you explicitly ask someone? Or sort of tracking down people, and you can have them almost as an informal mentor, and you might not actually secretly ever use that word with them, but you know that that's what they are for you. So what, off the back of that, what are some key outcomes of what good mentoring looks like when you're sort of sorting through who you're going to land with?
So I'm just going to backtrack a bit, because I don't think you should ever say to someone, or rarely should you say to someone, can you mentor me? Because that sounds like quite a heavy duty obligation. Something that might work more is, I can, specifically in the trailing spouse thing, I can see you were a trailing spouse, you've had the experience I'm living now. Could I grab a coffee or have a drink with you, just to help me understand how a few things work? And someone's much more likely to say that than someone says to them, I'm a newbie in KL or Singapore, wherever it is, and can you please guide me for the next 2 years of my life, right? So start small, and because also great mentoring relationships are based on chemistry as well. Not always, but if you can get a rapport going, and people want to spend time with people they like, so they've got to get to know you, and then they'll decide whether they want to invest more time in you or not.
So go on a date before you propose marriage. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. Yes.
So tell me, once you've sort of dated a bit, what are some of the things that you think people should be looking for as what does good mentoring look like?
Well, I think firstly, when you're seeking mentorship, to have a broad idea of what you need help with, right? So it might be, I'm trying to work out what the next step in my career is. I thought you might be able to help me frame some of that. Or I'm wondering whether I should go back to university. I was wondering. So I think to have something sort of, you don't have to have it completely resolved, but a broad question. And I will go to mentor walks now. What we ask at mentor walks is that when you come on a walk, that you have a broad idea of what you want to talk about. We're not asking you to have the answer, because that's why you're coming on the walk, because you come on the walk to talk to people that will help you get to clarity. But having that general question is, I think, is a really good place to start. And even sometimes the question is, my question is, I do not know where to start. What questions should I be asking?
That's super interesting. I think for those of you that haven't sort of clicked through and had a look at mentor walks in a really small, quick nutshell, the concept of mentor walks is that really senior career women have volunteered their time and mere mortals such as myself register to go on a walk, and you spend an hour walking around, again, having almost been pre-matched to an extent around what those initial sort of questions might be. And it's just such a really interesting way of doing mentoring that actually is probably something to consider when you actually approach someone. Maybe it's get a takeaway coffee and walk when you're meeting them for the first time, because there's something that I've found being a participant in mentor walks is that concept of not sitting across a table and having to sort of stare down with someone that you've only just met, that there's something a lot more casual and you can think things through when you're walking straight ahead and they're walking along next to you. I think that that's such a beautiful concept that makes up mentor walks as well. I think on the flip side as well, I think that the mentee has a really important role to play in this sort of relationship. Have you got any sort of hot tips or sort of some key things that the mentee, so the person sort of reaching out to a mentor, or once you're in that relationship, some key tips to how to actually perform or behave, or some things to consider?
Yeah, one is to be clear on why you've reached out to that person. You know, it's Joe, I've reached out to you because I know that you have experience as a trailing spouse, and I think you know, you would be able to help me with that. Or so to have an idea about why that person has the experience that you think you need for the issue. The second thing is broadly to understand what it is that you want to discuss, and to not feel that you've got to have an idea about what the solution is. As I said before, you're there to help work out what the solution is, but just generally what it is you want to discuss. What we said about dating is right. I think they would probably be the main thing. The other thing that's really makes a difference that often people forget is to let the person that's helped you know what the outcome has been. You know, if someone is generously saying, of course I'm going to help you, then the thing that you can do for them is let them know what the impact of their time with you has been. And you know, I can tell you from experience that nothing gives you as much pleasure as when you receive a note or a call from someone and said, that conversation we had, it's really helped me reframe, or I've done this, or I felt so much better afterwards, or whatever the outcome was. But that follow-up makes a real difference.
I love that. And I think as well, that will sort of demonstrating how grateful you are and those sorts of things. I think it plays a really interesting role in you also reflecting on things as well. So if you're thinking about like sending that thank you card, you're actually acknowledging that you've put things into place and that you've actually actioned some things out of a mentoring relationship, which is really exciting as well. I wanted to sort of push you a little bit back into sort of your experience over your career. And can you sort of talk me through, if you're willing to share any of these, about some of your experiences, just more personally around you, when in times when you've, say, a time when you've been a mentee and a time that you've mentored, and sort of just something about those experiences. I'm always really interested to hear.
Yeah, look, I've been really fortunate in my life that I have had a lifelong mentor, and it happened by happenstance. And you know, having a lifelong mentor is really rare. And this is a woman who has had quite a similar career to me. I think I'm her her double, you know, but 20 years younger. And I was lucky to meet her 30 years ago, and at different parts in my life, she has just been phenomenal. She has posed questions to me that have completely reframed the way I think about something. She's made introductions that have helped me, and we are now the best of friends. There are other people who I've approached because I had a particular issue I needed help with, and I had gone to them and said, I'm at this stage in the development of this business. This is how I'm feeling. I don't know what to do next. I know you've been in this position. Can you just help me at this juncture? So I've had both the long term and the short term. And the short term, there are lots of different people who I've been to around specific questions that I've had, and that's been enormously valuable. As a mentor, I don't even know where to begin with that. I think that so often we all know that it's so much easier to think clearly about someone else's problem than your own. And it is a real privilege when you are a mentor that someone invites you into their world to ask you for your guidance or thoughts around something. And so, I think also one of the things that I think about it being a mentor is that it really is a privilege for someone else to share their world with you. And I never take that for granted. And there are often times where you'll say one small thing and it will help someone reframe, or one idea about an avenue they could pursue or someone they could talk to, and it's a game changer for them. So it can be all those things. Sometimes people just need to vent. But I'm not sure that a mentor is the right place to do that ad nauseam. Probably your best friend is, but then you come with a more kind of broader question to the mentor.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. That's so, I'm very, I don't know, what's the word? Not envious, but what a treat that you've managed to have someone along your journey for such a long time. That's incredible. So I think that, well, from even my own personal experience of moving to a new country, I think that almost imposter syndrome, like if you're not actually working, like I feel like you just very quickly start feeling like you are possibly becoming obsolete in the workforce, or that you really quickly sort of feel like, oh, this imposter syndrome of, do I even sort of have the right or the conversations or the need for the conversations to even sort of seek out or to say buy a ticket and go to mentor walks. So I guess, okay, using Singapore as an example, because I live here and that mentor walks actually operates here. If I am a trailing spouse that has left a career that is possibly looking to meet people and grow their network to potentially find a job in their new location, or if they are like going to take advantage of this time in life to potentially start a business around what was previously a passion project, and that you've now got the time and energy to put into something. Like, is there a place for that in mentoring and, say, for example, in mentoring walks, I suppose?
I mean, one of the things we find all around the world with mentor walks is that often it's a place where women come when they've just moved to a city, because they're trying to find other people who are invested in their careers, who are active and energetic and committed, and they really want to build their community. So they see it as a place to meet like-minded women, and not just mentors, but the peers, because the model with mentor walks is you have a senior woman who's a mentor, but in the group that you walk and talk with, there are 2 or 3 other mentees. And so it's the collective conversation. So it is, in fact, a phenomenally good way to meet other women who have got similar questions to you or similar circumstances to you. And where also, because the conversation is based around discussing other people's issues as well as your own, that if you're having a bad day, you're feeling like your confidence is ebbing, or you're feeling like you've got imposter syndrome, it's highly probable that you'll ask a question or have an insight in that conversation that everyone goes, oh my God, that's fantastic. And, you realise actually that you do know something. And one of the topics that comes up more than any others at mentor walks is about imposter syndrome, and which is not feeling like you've got the right to be there, or that you know anything, or, we all know what imposter syndrome is. So I think that finding a community for yourself, that it does provide a great way of doing that. And I also think, I have a personal soapbox on this one, because I think that women generally undervalue the importance of building their networks. For me, building your networks is building your community. It's building a group of people that you can support and who might be able to support you. It's building community, not because you want something, just because it's a great thing to have. And I think a lot of women see networking, particularly women, men too, but mostly women see it as going out and selling themselves, and that's just not what it is. So if you, one of the things I love so much about the model we're doing is because you give and you also receive, and that is good for all of us.
Well, I'm exhibit A of literally every mentor walk that I've been on to date. I have hung around afterwards and had a coffee with at least one of the people that I walked with. And I have actually, one of my favorite people that I hang out with in Singapore, I met on my second walk here. And I have since sort of caught up, including going literally this morning for a walk, another walk with a coffee with one of the other mentees from one of my other walks that I'd been on. And so I think just reiterating that sometimes just biting the bullet and going to something like mentor walks, or going to a coffee thing that's been organised by a WhatsApp group through school parents, or just going to something that if you sort of go in with your eyes and mind open, that it's such an amazing opportunity, and the things that can come out of it are really, really amazing.
Yeah, and look, I think the other thing to think about it is that everyone finds meeting new people difficult. You know, some people, they look at people in the way they can work a room and they think, oh, you know, they love it, whatever. There are very few people that like it. We've all got our moments. So it's just something you learn to do because it's good for you.
Yeah, and it takes practice. I quite often get like, I'm that person that a lot of people will say, look, you just sort of cruise around and introduce yourself to everyone. And I say, internally, I am hating most of that time that of forcing yourself to go and, you know, interrupt a group of people that are already talking to each other. And like, it's really tough, but like it's with anything, like riding the bike, you get on and back on and you practice, and the benefits definitely outweigh that discomfort of putting yourself out there in the first place. So look, I want to wrap things up, Bobbi. I want to thank you for even just making mentor walks, because like I said, you're not only giving me a kick up the butt to go and physically get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go for a walk, but I have genuinely been able to build my network through the organisation. So thank you for that. And I really appreciate you sharing the stories about your mentoring experience as well. But I think that my really big key takeaway is that this is for everyone, that you can be involved either as like a receiving of mentoring and giving the mentoring. And I think that that we underestimate. You quite often have the mentor on this pedestal, but they're always learning from you as well, being the mentee, and it's very much a two-way street as far as the learning. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Delighted. Thanks, Jo.